Do have some breaking news from Capitol Hill. Our Peter Cook is there, and he has some news that may affect the Wall Street overhaul vote. Peter, what have you learned?
This breaking news from Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, one of the Republicans who backed the original legislation, was on the fence on this final version of the legislation after learning of this bank tax contained within the conference report. This letter he is sending to Chairman Chris Dodd and Chairman Barney Frank over on the House side. He says if the final version contains that $19 billion levy, he will not support the conference report. So that means another vote lost. He is saying you have to come up with another revenue source for this $19 billion in all to fund this legislation other than a bank tax. He suggests cutting federal spending. He suggests that there is ample revenue there to foot the bill for this. Margaret, this is important because the House has to have a pay-for, has to have $20 billion from some source in order to consider this legislation. Scott Brown says this bank tax is not an option for him, so lose one more vote right there on this legislation. This is a significant development.
And the language itself is key there because President Obama wants a bank tax later on. This, Senator Brown saying, you know, he doesn't want to have any kind of pay for, any kind of levy added in here. But does that just kick the can down the road? I mean, aren't we going to get a bank tax in a few months?
Well, more so, we're talking about, again, as you said, Margaret, two different bank taxes. This tax was one added at the end of the conference committee early in the morning hours on Friday. It is intended to target the institutions with more than $50 billion in assets, banks with more than $50 billion in assets, as well as hedge funds with more than $10 billion in assets. The House needs some way to pay for this legislation. Again, the cost about $20 billion in all. That's what this tax was imposed for. But it was a surprise to Brown and other Republicans who didn't know this was even under consideration, they say. And so now that's the issue here. That bank tax the president's been talking about is a separate tax that would be considered down the road if it gets considered at all by Congress. Their first issue is this tax.
The president just moments ago said in that conference with Fed Chairman Bernanke that he didn't think financial overhaul was in jeopardy following the passing of Senator Byrd. We'll see, given what you have just learned, how that also changes the conversation.